everybody. We are here to talk about, well, I can't believe it. Finally, Black Ballad Second Chances. I'm Eric Frankhouse. Of course, I am the designer for what is going on, but the more important man of the hour, Mr. Rick.
More important is questionable into this one. But yes, I'm Rick Hines. I am the co-founder of Storytellers Forge, also another writer, more on the narrative side, but I write novels, TTRPGs, and try to run a game studio like most of us do.
Well, so we met. We should probably give a little background on how we met. We met through our buddy Brian Berg, randomly after a convention at a bar having a little bit of food and drink. And then from there, it was like match made in heaven. What are we doing together?
Yeah, there was lots of renting and lots of whiskey was involved and cheese curds because apparently in Wisconsin, that's just what you're
And
supposed to
Guinness.
have.
We had Guinness because was it an Irish pub we were at? I can't
Ah,
remember.
No, it was the same place that all the vampire players murder
Oh,
each other at because it was
you're
it
right.
was one of the anime Milwaukee's
When it
actually
used
where
to
we
be the
met.
Mecca.
Yes, the mecca of you know. Oh no, wait a minute. Milwaukee is not the mecca of live action games, but that's a whole separate
That's a different
got
podcast.
different podcast entirely. But yes, we talked, and at some point we just kept seeing each other again and again, and we figured like there's got to be a way that we could work together. Which
Mm-hmm.
at some point, whether it be talks of Castlevanias and love of old RPGs and
Mm-hmm.
anime, and even us realizing that we had similar backgrounds in storytelling of the games that we played, it was only a matter of time of you ranting, about 5e and getting people to try other game systems,
uh,
and me being a narrative writer constantly saying, yeah, the whole perk is that I write campaigns that you can run in any game system. Voila. Here we are. We found a project to work on together.
what? And it's in the name of the company. So Storytellers Forge. How long has the company been around as Storytellers Forge now?
Well, the problem is you ask somebody like me that, I'm going to give a different answer than the public. Uh, we have been sort of in the works for about 4 years because we tried to write and create as much as we could before we went to market.
Oh, okay.
I come from a previous series of publishing snafus and hurdles all down the line, but we banded together and we launched our first project, published in December 2023, or sorry, May 15th, 2023, and that was the original Black Ballad campaign. And we've been that's when our like public face is. So we're entering our third year at the moment.
So Black Ballad came out, and that's probably the first thing we should kind of touch base on. You all wrote Black Ballad and put out a heavy metal tabletop RPG using the 5e system, the OGL, right? And brought people into the afterlife to continue playing their characters.
Yep. It spawned entirely that I always wanted to make the RPG book that every storyteller should have at the table, no matter what game that they were running, because death is an inevitable consequence for all adventurers.
So, how you guys did this Kickstarter? What has it been 3 years now? 2 years? How long ago did Black Ballad actually come out as like a full version to the public?
A full version to the public was 3 years ago.
Oh,
So
so
the
is three.
Black
Okay.
Yeah, that's the public date. We had been working on it a little bit beforehand. We always had, ever since I was an electrician in Chicago and doing concert lighting, hanging out with metal bands, I realized the Venn diagram between metal bands and gamers is pretty much a giant circle.
Yeah.
So I was sitting in a kitchen and, you know, kind of BSing with a bunch of band members, as it were, and they were talking about the state of the music industry. And I was like, guys, you have the Budapest Scoring Orchestra writing entire soundtracks. And we wrote our first campaign way back then called The Red Opera, Last Days of the Warlock.
Mm.
And that was published in a whole different avenue and time. And we really liked working together a lot. And we wanted to make a sort of a spiritual successor. And they had another album coming out. So we wrote the Black Ballad. This time, the roles were flipped, though. Rather than me writing more directly to the music in the album, we created the world, and then the band followed up with the album.
And we'll definitely get into the music aspect of this more as we continue talking about this Kickstarter and the project going on. So I guess we should probably tell them why in the hell we're doing a Shadow Dark book. Why a zine? What we're doing. So I know for me, the conversation was obviously us ranting about 5e and about the OGL debacle, which is not what this is about. Everybody, don't worry. We're not going to give you the when I was your age story, but we definitely saw that we wanted other systems to come to the forefront, and Kelsey did that with Shadow Dark. And then we were talking about Black Ballad in the afterlife, and I was like, Shadowdark's amazing if you haven't tried it yet. And you were hesitant at first, honestly, because it was
I,
high level stuff that you guys were kind of making in the Black Ballad, or actually already made in the Black Ballad.
I was hesitant, but the reason it came up is I think we were like 3 or 4 glasses in, and
Possibly.
I was going over my Kickstarter survey, and one of the questions we actually asked was, what products do you want to see us make next? Or we had already done a Pathfinder conversion of the Black Ballad,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was like, what game system do you want us to do next? And the number one pick was Shadow Dark for the Black Ballad, and Shadow the Demon Lord was number two.
Oh God. So how would you pitch the zine to somebody who is looking at I already own the Black Ballad. I also want to play Shadow Dark instead of 5e. How would you pitch this zine? Like, what was your concept when you came to me and said, "Hey, Eric, this is a level 20th campaign. You can make that work for a level 10 Shadow Dark game, right?" Like, what the hell were you thinking?
Do you want the truth, or do you want
Yeah, give me
the
the
okay?
truth. No, do the
So
truth.
the truth was straight up. I was like, oh hey Eric, can you just like take the rules from the Black Ballad and convert it over to Shadow Dark so we can make a nice PDF and make it a free download on our website? And you sat there and were like, good sir, Shadow Dark could be so much more, and this is way cooler.
Well, it was
Um,
sort of like that.
yeah, you're like, yeah, there might have been a few more swear words involved,
I
but
mean, well, I mean, with me and you, and definitely me, more than likely, I knew that you wanted to make a zine, and I walked through numerous conventions since Shadow Dark went out, and since the zines with even Mork Borg, like if we're just talking about the zine culture and the rise of the zine, like coming back to everybody in that collector but cost efficient mentality, moving away from seeing really large books come out and be a really high price point where people wanted to still buy. They wanted the rules, but it kind of went back to a little bit of the, I don't want to say OSR because it's not, but the old school style of gaming from the 90s and 80s where everything was an add on, a supplement, or a splat book after that core book.
look, and so when we talked, and you're 100% right, but there's one spiritual truth that the Black Ballad as a storyline was trying to convey. If a king could bring himself back from the dead for 100 gold pieces, why would he ever need to change his behavior? Maybe the reason nothing
Exactly.
changes in fantasy settings
Right.
is because there's no consequence or meaning to death.
Yeah.
And Shadow Dark was already a pretty brutal system. It had some elements with with the way the game mechanics worked, and it would allow us to even tell new stories in the Black Ballad that we just couldn't tell in 5e. And the whole premise of why like we really turned this into its own massive, or like this bigger undertaking of a project now, was we want death to have consequence and people's legacies to have meaning.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you and I definitely have the same storytelling background for what we're doing. And we like mechanics, but not stuff that hard get in the way with what we're doing, which comes into, some games are more crunchy, and I like a crunchy system once in a while. But I think for me, if I were to pitch like why the Black Ballad is moving to Shadow Dark as a zine, it's really simple. Um, when you die in Shadow Dark, which is often, sometimes your favorite party of characters eats it at like level 3, level 4, where you're in that hit point sweet spot. This zine allows you to continue playing after you die. And the party and the GM gets to have that one-on-one conversation of the, do we want to play here and in the crossroads, or do we want to bring these people back to life for a while and see how long they last? Either way, this book allows you to come away from that experience or the zine with a better story than you had going in. Like 100%, you're walking out with a loss of memory, possibly a change in who you are, and maybe even a change in like your ancestry that you have picked to start with some of the new ancestries that are in the zine. So to me, it's about becoming more than you were when you were alive the first time with that character. It really does emphasize what loss does and how it makes your character different.
And to those who already have the Black Ballad, because you asked how I would pitch it to those who've already seen
Mm-hmm.
the storyline, let's say you are playing 5e and you want to go to Shadowdark. This makes it a perfect session 0 because it's one of the few ways to actually escape purgatory
Yeah.
by the adventure that we have written in here, which is different than what we have in the main campaign book.
Yeah, yeah, and excited to do more with that for other people to see that adventure. We've already, at the point of time of this recording, we've already done one test with it. I have a private test coming up, and it's very different to see what happens. I can tell you that in it, people died 10 times and enjoyed every death when we ran it, which was a really good kind of indicator. So we kind of hit like what the zine's about. My question to us as a duo here would be, what does taking Black Ballad to Shadowdark solve? Like, how is why would someone come by the Shadowdark version other than I'm a Shadowdark fan and want to play Black Ballad? Does it solve any problems that you saw when you were developing things for 5e as a writer? Because I know mechanically it was a big hurdle for me to make it work for Shadowdark, but once I did, there's no way I can look back.
So for me, it solves one of the I wouldn't say it solves anything. It provides a different avenue for the other kind of storytelling that we like to do, which is at the table. I myself am a very free form GM.
Yeah,
I
same.
give a sandbox and I have a thing, and you really had a lot of fun, I think, teaching me about Shadow Dark tables and the way that they inspire things and
Mhm.
the way that they give you these self-looped mechanical storylines that are quick to run off of. And so rather than having as a studio, Storytellers Forge, we try to write campaign books. Our full campaign book really tries to coach storytellers to be those immersive, experiences sort of in a box, right? It solves it, trims out all the fat.
Yeah.
Shadow Dark is very light, it's very punchy,
Mhm.
and it's very quick. So it's condensed down into here's this element, and you still get all of the flavor, the metal, the meaning, the impact, and the tragedy that the Black Ballad conveys.
Yeah, and I saw when I was doing this, when you came to me and said, "Hey, it's a level 20 campaign," and you were already as a team solving the problem of scale of not everyone plays level 20. What I saw was, oh man, Shadow Dark's level 10. How do I make this happen? And I quickly learned like how to convert and reverse engineer 20th level down to 10. And honestly, the best thing about Shadow Dark is it is unforgiving, one. And two, you can fight higher challenges in Shadow Dark and feel that threat of it may not go well. But I think for me, what it solved the most of is I believe that Shadow Dark is a better foundational building block for not only new players, but for designers and for older players to make the game what they want it to be. There's just something about the elegance and the way it works. And when I was looking through the Black Ballad, you all cut a ton of fat on high level campaign play. Like you found a way to make it work for the average Joe without having to write stat blocks that are 4 pages long and dumb stuff like that. And Shadow Dark already leans in that direction. So it was a really good marriage looking for a system that could support the setting. And I think it does that really well.
Yeah,
Um,
it allowing us to play with the Storm of Broken Worlds and also create a unlike the Black Ballad, where the entire storyline focuses entirely within the Sunless Crossing and this big epic question about resurrection, which is still an option to be played.
100%.
Now that you have, the Second Chances book in the Shadow Dark format, this allows you to sit, even if you're not running the Black Ballad, on any of table that you're playing of, oh hey, your party has perished. Now you have something to do to
Yeah.
go back and get them back into the living world, so maybe they could take on a little bit more risk than they otherwise would.
Yeah, and you can
And how
keep
much
coming back from the dead if you have to.
and how much but how much are you willing to sacrifice to achieve that goal?
Ooh, so I guess that kind of brings us to the next thing. Like, what do players get, and what do GMs get out of getting this zine? From my perspective, you're getting new ancestries, new classes. You're getting a bunch of new spells, new items, and then on the GM side, you're getting two new game modes, a adventure that lets you take people when they die into the afterlife and to the crossroads or back out. If you just want to continue the campaign you have, this is a great interim. But it provides a bunch of things that you probably don't have in your normal Shadowdark game. Because the things that everyone are looking for right now, at least me as like a GM and as just a lover of tabletop RPGs, I want settings for Shadowdark, right? And this has a primer basically in that zine. And if you want more, you can grab the Black Ballad, which is going to be part of the Kickstarter. You have the option to get the new print run that's coming out. But overall, there is a lot of mechanical stuff to help support the story, but it's light and easy. Like, for example, when I was designing the ancestries in this, I gave you more than one choice for your starting ability just because I wanted to be able to take what was in the 5e version and bring it to Shadowdark without boiling it down to absolutely one thing. So you get a couple choices, which I think is flavorful and allows people who have already been playing Shadowdark to grow into a little more, I don't want to say advanced rules, but more options without bloat or paralysis. What about for you? Like, you came to me and wanted me to do this, and I think I know the thing I noticed the most was the monsters and NPCs you wanted me to convert were very different. And your spell selection for the classes, which we haven't even talked about, are very different. So let's start with like your idea of why players would want it and why GMs would want it. And then I really want to hear why in the hell you made the spell selections you did, because it's not normal.
So I really am just going to agree with you on the player selection, right? New modes of play, new things. I mean, soul stitching is
Yeah.
just freaking cool, right?
And that's part of
Like,
an ancestry and a class.
it's like, wait a minute, you're here and you want to like harvest souls and Shang Tsung them into yourself to get more power before you get out. Like,
Right.
play a little bit more wicked, have
Yep.
a little moral gray, because you could also be a good player that is doing that to bad guys, which is something that we intentionally did. The godless mode of play is like
Oh.
really plays up into divinity and faith,
Mm-hmm.
and how the more that you, no matter what class or what you're playing, it's like an add-on that allows you to experience a slightly higher tier of play by virtue of just actually caring about the deities that you interact with. And uh, on the GM side, for me, it's the music, right? I
Yeah.
storytell to music all of the time. And we also spent a lot of time after the Black Ballad had come out, like narrating these like full universe immersive letters, and the fact that you could go through the Storm of Broken Worlds and find these lost treasures and tie universes together. Like, you could be a GM and you've got this old plot line to pay homage from a game that was dead, and you could actually have the characters like wandering through this as like reminiscence for something that had they may have played 5 to 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and like blow your player's mind at the table, right? An excuse to play with that kind of stuff to give nostalgia to your players and really impact them is like just storytelling gold.
It is.
And so that's that. But the
So did you
spells,
did you do spells out of spite for 5e spells, or did you feel that you needed to bring like how do I want to explain this? Was it story based, the spell decisions, or was it a need for something you weren't seeing when you were running Black Ballad in 5e?
uh, one of them, the wish domain, was definitely story based. Like wish spells, like wish aligned elements and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Hopes and dreams were definitely a story based portion. Some of them, though, particularly the envy based spells, were definitely out of a bit of spite. I wanted to envy and regret were spells and domains that we wanted to create just out of this, hey, not every cleric is going to be standing there healing people like mad. There's different ways to look at things,
Right.
and there's different kinds of gods, and there's so many pantheons and portfolios out there that were largely underrepresented.
Yeah.
That's the reason those spells kind of bore into existence. We're like, no, we want to have something thematic and divine that isn't just all holy all the way through. Divinity can still be dark.
Yeah, and when you asked me to do, so you guys had a lot of stuff in the book that I had to find spaces for in the mechanics of Shadow Dark. And what I fell on the most was we needed a class for some of this, which you already had some classes in there, but we also decided on a game mode for one. We kind of divided a 20, because you guys had a 20 level class in one of them. And I was like, how do I strip and build this into something that works for an entire group of people in a game mode, and then also give them a class for stuff? And that was challenging. That was a lot of play testing. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it was a lot of sitting with a party. Does this make sense to you? How am I going to divide these things? What are core features that would be talents in a class? And this is something, as we get closer to the Kickstarter, we'll start showing off a little more of how the classes work, the PDF, and things like that. Don't worry, we're not going to hide it all behind closed doors. But the spells, when I was making them, I read through and was like, Jesus, dude, these are everything that is missing for Shadow Dark, for me, for this style of game, and also answer the idea of a narrative in death. They're like a lot of emotional context, and there are a lot of like things that come from when I'm reading dark fantasy. Your envy, your greed kind of stuff. The creature you can summon, which was awesome. I got to make a monster you're summoning as well. Um, the fact that there's an hour conversation about where that goes in the book should give everybody an idea of how much we were trying to cram into this thing. Because originally the zine was going to be, I think we said like 20 pages or 25 pages. It was going to be small.
Yeah, it's up to I think like 79 to like
Yeah.
89 or
Yeah.
something
It's,
like
it's,
that.
it's,
It's like a full on like
look,
leather bound thing
it
now.
went to the gym and put some weight on the bones. Like it went lifting. So I was really happy to kind of do all that stuff. And I guess really, I'm going to take us over. We should probably let them see the pre-launch page. I glimpsed it a little bit while you were talking there for people. But first off, the Second Chance Adventures in there. A lot of fun to run. That was something you wrote. Was that in any other product previously? And did you rewrite it for this? Was just this all kind of a new piece?
So the concept of going to where you go in the Storm of Broken Worlds did exist when the Black Ballad. In one of the novels that we had, we kind of played around with this idea of a way to escape the Sunless Crossing, escape purgatory, because importantly, you're not undead. You're just
No.
legitimately dead. You're just a soul. And so then when we were looking at this, we needed to design a one shot, completely replayable, infinitely so for your table, an
Mm-hmm.
add-on that would exist in your game forever, that if every time your players died this could happen, and that they might have different outcomes every time they do this. So this is unique to here, and it's kind of one of the things that we always wanted to write for the Black Ballad, just haven't done yet. So thus it is here.
And I will say, when I ran it, I only ran one area within it. And that one area, I could have ran multiple sessions with just that one area of where we were. And I did the classic Dark Souls style. I started them at a campfire, and I wouldn't let them look outside of the area they were in until they stepped out. And when they did, they saw the entire section that we were in and what was going on. And the safety they felt at that campfire was quickly pulled away as I killed the first player. And it was something that, like, they're like, oh my god. And I asked questions before. Some of them were Forgotten Realms fan. One guy was running Forgotten Realms, so I brought some deities from that, because this is a universal anywhere you could come from.
Yes, and that's actually one of the things is I did this for a character from Cyberpunk, White Wolf, Forgotten Realms, and like I think it was somebody brought a Ten Candles character that
Are
had
you
perished.
serious?
Yes, and sat down at the table, and they all made their characters, and I did this one
Yeah.
at PAX Unplugged as my demo, and we have a universal like joke among those of us who design and write in the Black Ballad is we kind of count how many times we kill players.
Oh, I'm at
Yeah,
10, baby.
yeah, you're saying you got me beat,
I
right?
got the setting that's made. I know the system that's made for it. It is made to murder players.
Yeah, I was,
PCC is maybe the only thing that has a leg up from this, or Mort Borg.
but the fun thing is when you die, it's not the end. You're just
No.
losing more and more until
Well,
the final consequence.
yeah, I will say the idea and the theme of loss is apparent immediately, because I just handed the sheet, because I printed out 2-page spreads and I handed them that sheet and said, please roll on these 2 tables. You come back in a D4 rounds. And I don't want to say what the tables are until we share them, but they looked at them and were like, are you kidding me? I was like, no, I'm dead serious. This happens every time you die until there's nothing left. And they're like, oh, I was excited and now I'm really excited to die more. I was like, yeah, right? Like it's fun. So you wrote this great adventure for it, and it is like, I think that was the big thing. That first pass I did when I was talking is like, look, you have to make this more like we run games, because that's how Shadow Dark works. They're loosey goosey isn't the right word. They are an outline of bones that you put the flesh on that you want. They are not even just, they are a skeleton. You can see it, you know the format, there's some descriptions, but it is not made to be I read box, character move, thing happen.
Yeah.
It is made for you to put your own flavor on it as a GM. We don't want to take away your style. We just want to give you a template to follow to continue using this over and over again. And this did it. So I hope it was fun. I know it's very different writing style than you got to normally do.
It's very well, so it's extremely different for somebody like me, but that's because I'm a professional novelist,
Yeah.
right? I write
Some
full on.
White Wolf stuff. You are familiar with the open-ended.
Well, sure, no. I'm open-ended with that stuff, and even the adventures that we write still are like narrative and format. And I've done writing for so many other game systems, but I've never done something down into sort of this. You cram all of the flavor. It was almost like pressing copywriting, where it's like you
It
cram
is.
all of the flavor down into as small as you can get it, and let the
Mhm.
storyteller take it from there.
Did you find, and this isn't a question we had, we have like a bullet point list. I should show people. So people think this is scripted. This is not scripted. I have some bullet points, but the thing I didn't put in here, I wanted to ask you was, when I told you what tables were, you did the same thing that everyone does when they pick up a game that has tables in it. Because we all grew up through us, the 80s into the 90s, and tables becoming this thing where you're like, I don't need tables in my game. These are why? And I was like, trust me, it's not the same thing that you remember tables being. They've been elevated. And then something for you clicked when I showed some of the tables and how they're built, and you're like, oh my God, I can do so much with this and write less. Like, I can give the GM the tools they need instead of building the car. What did it for you? Like, what was
Okay,
there
so
something
I
specifically?
actually have to reveal a little bit about the table to do this, but there was one specific
All
thing,
right.
but it's not too much. It's not going to reveal what the table is, but this idea of this kind of design. Tables, for as long as I've grown up on them, are a reference stat block of inspiration material for a storyteller to roll a freaking dice and whatever. We never use them because they're never freaking relevant.
No.
Uh, the table that when you walked me through how to design a table for this, where every time they roll on this table, there's a dice modifier that changes that. So they're
Mm-hmm.
naturally going to progress higher and higher on the table, that leads the story like a funnel from a big giant open sandbox to eventually the end point they're going to want to do. And here's all these random encounters that they could potentially have. So rather than me have to write, here's 1,000 random encounters
Mm-hmm.
that could go to this. Here's the snippets of the plot hook for this random encounter. But as the characters solve that, they're then going to have a feedback mechanic which beautifully feeds upon itself, so that every time they go through the adventure, it's like a Diablo dungeon.
Yeah.
And then once I started looking at it like a Diablo dungeon, I was like, wait a minute, that was it. That was the moment for me when I realized that the tables weren't just static things, they would evolve as the game progressed. In Shadow Dark specifically, that changed my brain on them.
Yeah, and for me, I was anti-tables forever. I blame Rollmaster. I mean, I still love you, Rollmaster. We're friends. You're just not sleeping in the same bed anymore. So, but the thing that I learned with tables, with the new era of designers coming out, is there are ways to use the table. And when I design them, I reverse design. I start at the where I want it to end, and I work backwards to create the broadness of where I want them to start and kind of fill in that middle. And it does this thing. It's not even weighted. It's not a weighted table. It is a climbing table. It is something that escalates as you continue your story. I'm excited for people to see it. It's in other things, but I think it works so well in this story that once you run it once, the second time you already know what you're doing. And we've provided like tables in the book to make this easier for you without giving too much away. So the other question we were talking about earlier was the whole idea of all the things that they get. So I'm at least going to put that on screen for everybody right now. 2 new ancestries, 2 new classes, over 20 spells, over 20, and you call them armaments instead of weapons or anything because it's kind of like a category, and gear because it's Shadowdark's tier. So 20 new ones, 2 modes of play, and 17 monsters and NPCs. I should say this. The monsters and NPCs in this are not for the faint of heart, and they are not for like fledgling characters. They are definitely made to challenge your players, and you don't have to fight them. But there are combat numbers there so that if you do, like the person that's in this lovely image here with the multiple wings, make sure that your day is very bad. She's tough. And these were 20th level, 18 to 20th level characters that I had to like boil down into something that could be fought. And during the adventure, you fight, shall I say, a large amount of something without giving it away, with a very large hit point pool. But there are some ways to deal with it to get out. And that my party, the way they did it is when they were all dead, when it had nothing else to do, it left. Because the timer for them coming back was all together. And it's like, well, I will go to the next group. And it left. And the party came back like, holy shit, we cannot encounter that thing again. And it was like this moment of like, you found the Dark Souls boss that was too strong for you at the time. And it was a really fun moment for the party as they were piecing things together that were in there. I don't know how that fights went for you at PAX.
They largely relied on the other alternative ways to escape.
Gotcha.
And in my case, it was digging.
Oh, okay.
You know what? We're just gonna try to hide and sacrifice that one. They sacrificed one person to send them running off into the distance, so they could all just hide.
That's amazing. And so we also made sure that during this adventure, that both those modes of play that we are talking about are part of this short adventure at the back of the book. And I think you'll see it come up over and over because the way they were designed, and Rick, I'm assuming this was the goal, they are made to be a part of the Black Ballad as a whole in Shadowdark. Like those modes of play are something you can continue to use in everything that you do.
Yes, even when you leave the setting. Like that is the important thing. You go here, this encounters, you've had this unlock and this, change for your character or your game. You can bring that out back into your Shadowdark campaign.
That's pretty cool. I didn't even realize that myself, like looking back through the notes. So we put a lot of work into this. Let's talk about when, where, how, why, where they can get it, and all that stuff. So normally, Storytellers Forge is known for doing backer kit. We're doing Kickstarter this time, and we are doing this on March 17th. So mark it, link it from down below. Whatever you're watching right now should have it somewhere. We also have a fun little interactive thing that we're going to be doing during our campaign, like as we ramp up to it. I don't want to give too much away, but I should say it is the thing that all players and GMs like to talk about outside of what their character is. It's like the second thing, I think, after my character is a paladin with a holy avenger. This is the second biggest thing that people talk about in memory. Can you think of anything? I mean, I think this is number 2.
It's number 2. It's hands down number 2.
Because I don't think it'd be number 1, because number 1's always going to be, have you heard about my character?
Yep.
And so this is the have you heard about and then something else. And it's going to be something we're doing fun for it. Should we tell them what the end, what I think we should probably at least tell them what the campaign you can win.
Yeah, so the prize of this is the best that we encounter of this talked about thing.
Yep.
Is going to make it into the actual storylines that we are going to release for a whole new sequence of adventures. Like,
without sharing too much.
Yep.
And you guys can deliberate whatever it is you want to do. You can leave comments down below that's like, I think it's X. I'll tell you what, if one of you guesses, I promise if you guess, I will read out your thing for it for something in the future. I will contact you through wherever this video is and we get the feedback. So is there anything else that you should say about the Kickstarter here before we cut this one for the day? And we have a lot more videos coming for everybody. We are doing interviews with people from the team that help make this happen. We have more from us as we break down more of what Second Chances is about with the Black Ballad. But is there anything else you can think of for the Kickstarter that we should hit up that wasn't on screen for that preview? Probably the cover of the book. I should probably show that off for everybody. So I'll have that on screen. Can you think of anything else?
You can have that on screen, and I can definitely think of some crazy 2 purgatory poker coins that we're baking into the inside of this book, because everybody's got to pay the toll to the ferryman at some point.
Yeah, this guy here in the verticals and this guy here in between us.
And then we also have to have obviously you get the music, you get everything, but should we talk about like the higher tier or?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to tell the 2 tiers, talk about the 2 tiers.
Because we got that's just the base Black Ballad. We are also redoing and making like a deluxe edition of our Purgatory character journal, complete with like your last will and testament. We have a fantastic novel that was written called To Slay a God by Brian Fitzpatrick. Because sometimes if you need to kill a god, you got to kill yourself to get the job done.
True.
All right. It is metal. It is fantasy, and tying novels into RPGs. I grew up reading them. And we're a bunch of authors, so we can do that. But importantly, we actually, as a small studio, get to go to crowdfunding for the first time ever with a project that was actually completed, and we're doing this for your support to help actually get the print run, and actually do it. So it's not going to be like you back this and then you have to wait another 2 years to get it.
Yeah, I mean, so can we tell them when they're getting the PDF?
The PDF's going to come 30 days after the Kickstarter really closes out. So this is May 15th.
I would say if I had to put a percentage on the PDF being done, it's like 95%, because we're into hyperlink land and some fine tuning on the digital side.
Last minute content that gets added and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's it. So it's going to be ready. So when this is done, you're going to get that pretty quickly. We're talking about making a preview version for people to be able to download and look at. If that's something you all like when you're doing a Kickstarter, let us know. However on social media you are watching this, let us know if previews matter to you. Because we're talking about adding a little preview in the Kickstarter. I don't know for a zine if that's something that people think is a necessity. There'll be plenty of art spreads and turnarounds, and you'll be able to see the coins and the trailer for the Kickstarter and everything else. But that's it for here today. We'll talk more about this in a future video. I think the next one we're doing, it's going to be about why Black Ballad. I think is going to be one of the new ones coming up, along with about the music for what we're doing, the production and the process of making something like this. This wasn't a 2 months
I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, this was a over a year endeavor of making just this zine. A year. Yeah. So I'm excited to talk about that and much, much more. Hopefully we can get some of the, people making the music on and some other amazing stuff. So I'm Eric Frankhouse, designer for Black Ballad Second Chances.
Rick Hines, doing the writing thing, sarcastic things, dead things, trying to run a studio. Hopefully doing it well.
Well, until next time, GMs, go kill some characters, and players, make it memorable.